Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fanzone Debate. We are here for just a fun match. We got a match that's going to lead into next season more so. Not part of any title picture this season, but a match that we've been kind of wanting to see for a while. And now we're going to get it, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if I'm happy by the end of this or if I just want to hurt myself. So we have Andrew James Barr going up against Adelaide Spence. Barr most recently playing in the tournament as the number 14 seed against Cameron Holtzman, who went on to play for the title. So if you were to lose to someone, there you go. Adelaide Spence also playing someone very good in the tournament and losing in round number one. Jacoby Bancroft, previous champion of the league, who went out in round number 3 against Cameron Holtzman as well. So both these players, I think, kind of finding their way up against tough competition in their careers here at Fanzone. I think that Spence, while I think we might have written them off coming into debate, they have some good arguments to be made. They always come up with interesting ideas. It doesn't always work 100% of the time, but they come in and at least make me surprised, at least as a judge, which is kind of what you want to do. And I also think Barr is one of the most underrated players in the league. He has a record that just does not, I think, match his ability in debate. He's 2-4, and Spence being 1-3, I should have said. And I think just Barr and Spence are both a lot better than that. So I think they should have winning records. One of them is going to get another win on the record. Let's see who it is. I've talked enough. Let's go over to Brian. Brian, thank you for being here. How are you doing, my friend? And what do you think of the matchup?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back. Again, it's nice to have a match that's not, a title match, contender match right away. It's one that's a little bit more low stakes. Obviously, the competitors want to get those wins in now. And they're both people who, they're very good at pitching their arguments. They're also usually very fun to listen to, but that's part of the problem. It could go off the rails. I don't know where this debate's going.
That's true. Cody, how are you doing, sir? And what do you think of this matchup today?
This matchup is going to be something else. Two opinionated people. Barr debate has had giant mistakes he's made while picking. He famously picked Kirk strengths, and Kirk picked his or whatever, and was able to get first pick and lost that match. He lost to Holtzman. And that was something that was evenly matched. So I think he has the chance to make a run and go and challenge for a belt and see if he can get out of his own way. Same thing with Spence. Spence once went into a debate thinking they were debating something completely different, and then Jacoby had to let them know that hey, that's not what you picked, and had to switch again. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they get out of their own way and see who walks out. But one of them is going to lose, unfortunately. But should be a good fight.
Yeah, so let's bring in the competitors. We'll start by talking to Spence. Spence, you're the lower ranked player here today, but like we said, you bring some interesting ideas to the table, even and like Cody referred to, showing up and not even arguing the right thing right away. You turned it around and made it an awesome fight in that, I believe it was the musicals category. So you know how to bullshit, and that's kind of what you need to do in order to play in this league. How are you feeling about going up against Barr?
I loved your opening bit where it's they just argue things that I didn't think about. As long as I'm interesting, I don't give a shit. I'm probably gonna lose today. I've had I don't want to make an excuse about it. I think Barr probably has more ready to beat me today. I have to hope they put up a good fight. But the things he picked, fuck you, dude. Come on.
That's fair. That's fair. I think about that often when I think about Barr. Just come on. Let's bring him in. Barr, welcome. You're the higher ranked player today entering the match. You're going up against Spence. You both seemed excited and pissed off when I put in the green room. How are you feeling about going up against Spence?
Spence is the Nick Mundy of Fanzone. They pick things that should not work, and yet they get points and they get votes. So that's
insult.
Whoa!
I forgot about Nick. I forgot that name. Wow.
Spence thinks I'm prepared Joke's on you. I forgot this was happening until 2 days ago. So we'll see what happens.
We love to hear that as showrunners.
I've known it's happening for 2 weeks. I'm just exhausted.
Guys, I'm very excited to see the match. Let's get into it. This is how it's going to work. So, Spence and Barr drafted categories. We then gave them questions based off those categories, and they are now going to have to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. And so what's going to happen is there's 4 of those prep questions. They're going to get a 1-minute opening, a 5-minute freeform, and a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Brian, Cody, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards who we thought won the point and the question. Whoever gets 2 votes gets a point, and whoever gets 3 points first wins the match. Any questions about how this is going to work?
Can I get a drink? I am going to dry myself out before too long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. Spence has their drink, and we are going to get going with the first category, which was drafted by Andrew James Barr in the category of Jimmy B, James Bond. And your question is simply, who is the best Bond villain? Barr, we're going to kick this off with you. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking. I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes. So again, 1 minute when you start talking.
Goldfinger. Look, Auric Goldfinger is the greatest Bond villain to have ever graced the screen. Not only does he have his own theme song, which not a lot of villains in Bond franchises do, but this dude is just so well written. His plan is so well thought out, and he's just such an interesting, dynamic character for being someone that's actually really simple when it comes to the writing. And that's the biggest strength of Goldfinger. My opponent's going to talk about Silva, who is an overly complicated Oedipus complex problem that I can't wait to talk more about. And I yield the rest of my time.
Okay. Ending about 15 seconds early. We're going to bring in Spence. Spence, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Silva is the most interesting James Bond villain because he is the antithesis of what James Bond is. He is the idea of we give absolute power and training and strength to one man, and what does he do when he defects from the system? He is everything who James Bond was supposed to be. M trained him as her golden boy, and then when he left, look at the destruction he caused. And when Bond comes in as the next golden boy and confronts him, will he be lured away from the 00 program, or will he fight back, or will he defend everything that he's known, that he's loved? And he starts questioning the organization, everything around him. Silva is not only the most engaging villain in the James Bond series, he also elevates the film around him. He adds depth to a film that doesn't need it, but just makes it, again, one of the best. Goldfinger is a largely ineffectual and more comic villain than anything else, honestly bringing down everything around him and meaning nothing to James Bond as a character as a whole.
Okay. Ending a little bit early as well. So Silva versus Goldfinger. 5 minutes, freeform. When one of you starts talking, I will throw up the 1 minute warning when the time comes. If I feel like one of you is talking too much, I will throw up the let's move on. So don't make me do that, or I will be very, very sad. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
Spence, you said that Goldfinger as a character is incidental, right?
Ineffectual, but yeah.
Okay. I'd like to bring up one letterboxed review by one Adelaide Spence for the film Goldfinger, in which they say Bond is entirely incidental to the plot, and honestly, that makes the movie so much more interesting. So you're more interested in Goldfinger than you are in Bond in this case, then.
Number one, let's cite the movies. Let's not cite external references that aren't pertinent to this actual review. Number two, just because James Bond is bad doesn't mean anything. He's always been bad. The issue with Goldfinger is that he has a really stupid plot. Everything about James Bond as a character, as a franchise, is about him rising up and stopping the villain from hurting everything around him. Goldfinger is just selfish. He just wants gold. He has personal influence. It's not like Lex Luthor who wants to hoard money to then have like property he can sell or something, like external influence. It's just gold.
And
there's nothing else going on to him.
And that is so refreshing in this franchise. How many overly convoluted characters do we have as villains in these films, where these giant, massive, like destroy the world plots and like blah blah blah? Goldfinger is easy to relate to because his primary function is greed, whereas Silva is an overly complicated character with weird mommy issues, if we're going to be completely honest with you. And if one small thing in his plans go wrong, everything just falls apart, whereas Goldfinger's is laid out, it's clear, it's not complicated.
Not complicated doesn't inherently mean better, though. At the end of the day, Silva is interesting because he is doing what Bond honestly could have done. He has a mommy thing, because Bond probably does too, because he threw his entire life away to join a program which promised him safety, when at the end, which he said, okay, I'll fucking kill myself to get out of it, and it failed. Silva is the fear of every single agent that goes on. Every person in that program could become Silva, and that's what makes him scary, because yes, we see what one does. How many more are down the line? How many more are there? Goldfinger, I don't care about how simple or he's not even engaging. At the end of the day, he's underwritten of anything. His whole bit, it's one bit is gold. It's I want gold. I'll paint women in gold. I'll buy a bunch of shit and then play golf until I can find more gold. He is so simple-minded that you lose interest in the rest of the film around him.
But he is utterly charming. And honestly, that charm draws you in more. And I want to bring up the fact that everybody knows the line, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." We don't really remember anything that Silva has. Silva is just a small incidental person in the overall arc, which is the trilogy, or the quadrilogy. Whereas Goldfinger, he has one film. You remember him for this long.
I think it's weird to single out a single line rating as iconic when I could also tell you, hey, from Showgirls, everybody got AIDS and shit. Just because I know a line doesn't make it single-handedly a great performance, a great character, greatly written. I think also charming is a weird way to do it. That is just an overall bad performance. He has a weird inflection. Silva is not charming. He's fearful. And I think you watch him and you hang on every single line because you are mortified of what a man with the you've seen what Bond has been able to do in the past two movies, in the past 50 or not 50, whatever, many decades of film. A man with that skill and that power, literally holding him hostage, holding a gun to someone and saying, like, shoot it off their head. Everything he does is a game for power and control, and you do not know what he's doing next, and that's what makes him terrifying. The Joker is one of the greatest villains of all time in film.
And you had your time. You had your time. And then at the end, gets home alone by Bond and two elderly senior citizens, whereas Goldfinger had to be taken out by the fucking military. And you want to make Silva out to be this original, unique concept in the Bond franchise, when we had this villain in GoldenEye. He is a retread of another villain.
Just because he was taken out by two James Bonds doesn't make him any less interesting. I don't care about Home Alone. If you want, you want a goofy, campy tone that has Goldfinger, Silva just got that, so you're undermining your own argument. At the end of the day, though, Silva is exactly what happened. How do you beat one Bond? By two Bonds. You bring back, again, he was supposed to be Sean Connery, but he's still two Bonds had to take out Silva. That's how strong he is. Goldfinger was taken out by the military because Bond is incidental to the rest of that film. He means nothing to Goldfinger's final plot. You're not watching a James Bond movie. You're watching a movie about a boring, weirdly acted, overly whatever villain. He adds nothing to the overall film.
You think that there's no weird inflection or overacting in Silva?
It's part of his charm.
Time. Okay, let's go to Spence. Spence, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
The Daniel Craig era of James Bond films is about darkness, and it's about fear, and about what the power of James Bond can be, and what happens when the man who travels the world has all that power. And it's boiled down directly into who Silva is as a character. He is the center point of who James Bond is as Craig's era. Goldfinger is, yes, a standout in Connery's era because it goes from knowingly campy into everything around it is just badly campy. It does not make it good, though. I don't think anything that Goldfinger offers in his film is engaging as a character or as a villain. He means nothing to James Bond as a whole. Bond is there to intercept him, then does nothing. Bond does not matter to Goldfinger's plot. The military intercepts him because no one better is around. They are much lower on the totem pole than what the 00 program is meant to do. Silva is near unstoppable, who needs some of the greatest fighters and secret agents in the world to take him down, while also being incredibly personal to who James Bond is as a whole. Silva as a villain is more important to James Bond as a character than Goldfinger ever was or will be.
Time. Okay. I'll move over to Barr. Barr, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
My opponent at the end just said about Silva, about the accent and overacting, it's part of his charm, which they just used to argue against Goldfinger. First of all, they also did not give a quote for Silva when I said that they had a memorable quote. So, also, Bond is impressed by Goldfinger's plan. He literally compliments him when he realizes that he's going to make the gold nuclear, so his gold is actually worth more. He's also always ahead of him. He recaptures him just moments after escaping the car factory. The tracking device is crushed. Goldfinger is Bond's equal, but just with a lesser complicated plot. And that makes him a more interesting figure because we can relate to that more. Plus, Bond does kill Goldfinger. It's just the rest of his men that get taken out by the military and not 2 senior citizens.
Time. Okay. I don't know why we're doing all this age shaming, but
Yeah, what the frick?
Old people can't fight.
Well, now I don't know who to vote for.
Kirk plays trivia all the time. Old people can fight.
Also, so far, I haven't seen Gold.
I also know Kirk watches all of these, so he's gonna you hit me up, Kirk, when you get okay. All right. I'll go first. Oh, there was something I wanted Barr to say so bad at the end, like so bad. Spence said in their closing, like, Silva is like the greatest like thing to happen to Bond, or like the best like enemy to Bond or whatever. And I just wanted Barr to be like, Silva's not there for Bond. Silva's there for M. Like, Silva doesn't give a fuck about James at the end of the day. He only cares about M. I wanted Barr to say that so bad. That being said, I still went with Barr. I thought that Barr did a good job in the main fight, especially taking down most of Spence's arguments for Silva. I thought the GoldenEye comparison was really good. I didn't even think about that, and it's totally true. Something I thought that was a really good point to bring up, that it's just kind of a retread of a former 00 coming back and being the villain. I thought Spence had some good hits against Goldfinger, but I thought that Barr overall just had enough knocks against Silva and positives to Goldfinger that worked for me. So, Brian, where are you going?
Actually, with Spence. I think that Barr did a great job of explaining what makes Goldfinger the more memorable villain. But Spence did a better job of convincing me why Silva was the better villain. And especially when he talked about, how he adds depth to the character of Bond and the story of Bond, his connection, and it's more important to that character of Bond. It's more, intricately connected. I just thought it was a better argument for best instead of memorable.
All right, Cody.
That classic thing that happens on Fanzone a lot is me and Tim disagreeing. Not today, with Barr. I think Barr just overall painted the better picture for me of the best Bond. I did think the GoldenEye take was real strong. I thought, I thought it was very weird. Like Barr almost lost me with like Silva doesn't have a theme song and Goldfinger has. I don't give a shit about any of that fucking thing. And then it's like, oh,
Spence would jump on that.
it's like, oh, Spence didn't say a memorable quote. Like when I was like, oh, shut up. Like these things don't matter. But like when you was the crux of it, where it came down to it, I think he just painted it better. And I think he had more knowledge of both characters, and Spence was lacking a little bit on Goldfinger, personally. But it's okay.
All right. So Barr is up 1-0. We're going to move on to the next category, which was drafted by Spence in the category of directors. And the question is, what is the best directed film of the 2020s? So Spence, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
The skill of a director is to take on basically every responsibility, both in front of and behind the camera, and lead it well, direct it well. And I think that's done no better in the 2020s than in The Last Duel, a film that at its core is just the retelling of one story 3 times. And 99% of other directors would just do the same thing 3 times and not put a lot of thought into it. I think what Ridley Scott does here is really interesting and fascinating and masterful, where every single bit of the same starting point and the same ending point, he thinks about every step in that process about what changed, how an inflection changed, what a character perceives in the background of a scene change. Every little bit is so thoroughly thought through, also leading 3 of the best performances of the decade, and mastering what can be a really daunting and mortifying script into something that's really just easy to follow and engaging. It's just brilliant.
Time. Okay. Let's go over to Barr. Barr, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Multiverses, kung fu, hot dog fingers, punching someone and having their head turn into confetti, fighting with dildos and butt plugs. You combine all of these things, including a bunch of other like hyperbolic like thoughts and stuff like that, it should not work at all. But the Daniels expertly crafted everything everywhere all at once. And that movie is amazing. That movie would not work as well if it wasn't for the Daniels behind the helm. Last Duel, it's very good, but it drags, and you don't get lost at all in the utter chaos and insanity of everything everywhere all at once. And I'll yield my time.
Great. My 2 favorite movies from the last 2 years. So, all right. 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
It's weird to say The Last Duel drags when the biggest issue about Everything Everywhere is it's overly long and the directors didn't know how to. The rest of the movie is edited to shit, except for a few scenes where they just drag and they carry on about. I think they focus too much on Evelyn and Ki Kwan's relationship in a way that's not like detrimental to the film, but it feels like it's excess. Like in a movie that's supposed to be so edited and so tight, it's a lot's going on. A lot of the film actually, I think, is overrated to the point of it's losing your connection to that emotional core.
Right, but that editing process is actually vital to the way that the multiverse works in that film. You're hopping around at the speed of light, and that's how the editing is captured in some points. And then when it's slowed down to capture a lot of that action and those amazing action sequences where you can follow everything, it's just expertly done. Edited shit. Like the way that things pop in and out and it looks so seamless, you're insane. Whereas with The Last Duel, it's 2.5 hours and it feels like 3.5, especially the first story. That first story is a slog to get through. I love Matt Damon. This was not the role for him because he is stiff and awkward and it's not working.
I think I won't agree with awkward, but I think that Damon holds himself as a very stoic individual, which might make him seem stiff. No part of it is interesting or boring or slow, however, but that's how he is. And then you see in the Adam Driver and Jodie Comer segments how much of a joke he is, how his stoicness is actually a flaw in his character, and how he's actually just a doofus, and the other characters aren't commenting on it, and he doesn't recognize it within himself. That being said, though, I think that you just admitted to it as well. The editing about Everything Everywhere is more of what its prowess is not the direction behind it. It's very hands off. Like most of that's in the script. Even I don't think the Daniels bring anything as directors to elevate the whole experience. The tentacles behind them are what's supporting their, and we've seen from the other films, they're just very much like an actors go at it kind of directors. They're not adding a lot to the film in and of themselves. Scott is the driving force behind why The Last Duel is so powerful and so memorable.
Yeah, but who has the role of being able to string everything together into a beautiful, cohesive plot that brings all those technical elements together, which is the director. And the director also is supposed to bring out the best performances from their actors, when Scott doesn't really quite get that from some of his actors. Plus, the whole thing with Ben Affleck's character, it is a tonal whiplash. Like his performance, that role just clashes with the rest of the tone of the film in a way that just doesn't work. Whereas the humor and the heart and everything everywhere about Everything Everywhere All at Once works, especially the relationship between the family. That family dynamic wrapped around in all this chaos is still told in an expert fashion.
Saying that Affleck doesn't fit with the rest of the film actively is ignoring what segment he's predominantly in. He's in the Adam Driver segment, which is perfectly juxtaposed because they are both rich and obsessed with themselves. Just because he's comedic doesn't mean it breaks the tone of the film. They entirely fit within their own sub-narrative of the three that are going on. And to say that the emotion doesn't follow through is insane to me. You feel every emotion all three characters are going through. And that is why it works so well. The stoicness that you just described within Damon of him being stiff, that's the point. The gaudy, over-the-top nature of the rich and the affluent of Driver, that's the point. Comer's heartbreak and sadness and removal from the system just for being a woman is the point of the third act, and she is incredible there. You still have not pointed out the fact that the emotional moments, especially between Evelyn and Joy in the final bit, where they're trying to reconcile within the prime universe of just mother and daughter, is just cut and cut and cut around everything around them. And you can't sit in that moment of a daughter who, even in the moment of them trying to reconcile, is still verbally abusing her daughter. Of, you're not perfect, but you're still mine. That's not the point of the movie. You're still hurting when
she learns from that, and all of the cutting around that, it's still flowing in a cohesive way that under any other director would look muddled and shitty and cloudy and would not come across as clearly as it does in this film that the Daniels are able to do. Honestly, most of The Last Duel is on the strength of Comer and Driver, and it's not on Scott, who's cribbing himself from other movies.
Time. Okay, we're going to start with Barr. Barr, you get a 1 minute closing when you start talking.
There are so many elements that had to go into the creation of Everything Everywhere All at Once in order to make it work, but still have this wild, chaotic energy, plus a heartwarming story, fantastic acting, incredible editing, beautiful costumes, and who's the person and who are the people that have to make sure that every one of those things works in a cohesive way at the top of their game? The director. Ridley Scott is not only cribbing off of his own stuff from Gladiator and Robin Hood in this movie, but it's an uneven film where the first 30 to 40 minutes are bland and they don't get any emotion across. Whereas with Everything Everywhere All at Once, you have beauty in chaos, and no other directors could have done that the way that the Daniels did.
Time. Okay. We're going to go over to Spence. Spence, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
beauty and chaos is something we've seen before from directors like Zhang Yimou over in other countries. Brought to here, yes, it might be original, but it's still not the greatest thing that's ever been done. Ridley Scott's introduction of The Last Duel and balancing these three narratives, I think, is damn near perfect, if not perfect. Saying it's uneven or there's no motion in part one is in pace with Matt Damon's character, and it actually works in the film's favor. You already admitted to the fact that the editing interferes with the emotional core of the film. There are a lot of moments that rely on Evelyn's connection to her family, which is then cut with everything around her, and you lose with just Evelyn. It doesn't matter if the multiverse is still a part of her. You're following a person's story, and you cannot follow it. There is no emotional through line for your lead character because it's surrounded by so many things going. It's a film of excess. There are bits that are cut out. There are storylines that you can cut out. There's an individual scene that you need removed to get an emotional catharsis going on. That is not there in The Last Duel. Everything there is purposeful, and it might be slow, but it is thoughtful, and it is powerful. Every bit of it builds to the final action scene, which also is dope as fuck. Every part of it is perfection.
Time. I'm depressed.
Both are 5 stars for the record.
Not in Barr's eyes.
Nope.
I mean, he holds 5 stars very. I get it.
That's true. Barr once gave a movie 4.5 stars because he fell asleep. But he already saw the movie before.
I swear, if that influenced the judges, I'm calling shenanigans.
Drink a coffee, Bar.
I don't drink coffee.
Drink a Red Bull.
Fuck that
There's a
shit.
person that works at 3 a.m. You don't drink coffee?
I drink
Get a
tea.
4 Loco.
You would.
All right.
We should have given you back after the Revolutionary War.
Cody, you're kicking this off.
Okay, interesting. One of these movies I like a whole lot. My favorite movie of that year. The other one, really good. Really good. Some good choices. I think there was a lot of weird things that thrown out because I don't know. Like, best directed film, right? Do we blame the editor for the directed of the word? I don't know, but I know there's an editor on the thing, so is the editor the person the problem? Who knows? But I felt like Spence made Barr fight that fight pretty heavily. I think Spence won me over overall with the overall conversation of, like, even if you disagree with it, I think made Barr at least try to defend those parts of the film that are chaotic and, like, devoid of the chaotic editing at that point, where it makes it feel. And I think really told how the 3 parts of Last Duel is impacted by Ridley's directing and why it works in his hands. And I don't know any other hands that would have worked. So, yeah, spend one on this one for me.
Yeah, this was tough for me. I love both these movies very, very much.
You do?
I've been riding The Last Duel train since before it came out. Nobody saw it. And then I told everyone to watch. Thomas Scully saw it. And then a bunch of people saw it after I saw it. And then everyone was like, Caleb Boatman, thank you so much for telling me to see The Last Duel. And I wanted to kill myself. But anyway, I thought it was weird that we never brought up the fact that Daniels won Best Director for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Doesn't matter to me.
I'm not letting it affect it because it was never brought up, but I thought that would have played a factor here.
People have won that award without earning it.
What?
Yeah.
People have won that award without earning it.
No, I agree. I mean, shush, I'm talking. And so I'm going to change. No, I'm kidding. This was really tough. It was close. I thought that there was a really good back and forth. And I thought that in both questions, by the way, really good, even back and forth. So thank you for that. But there was just moments in each side of it where, like, people brought stuff up and the opponent was able to just, like, take it down pretty tactfully. What kind of made me go with Spence at the end was I just heard, like Cody had mentioned, I heard more from Spence about why specifically The Last Duel wouldn't be as good of a film if it wasn't directed by Ridley Scott. And I think Barr attempted to do that with Everything Everywhere All at Once and the Daniels, but I didn't hear enough examples to kind of make that a stronger point than Spence. But I do say that this was very, very close. I was kind of going back and forth the whole time. I was struggling with making a decision. So Spence wins the point. Brian, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I actually would vote for Barr.
That's my win.
He'll take that as a win, yeah. No, it's one of those things like Cody was mentioning. It's like as you listen to the arguments and the digs at the other person's film, it's like which things are really the fault of the script versus which things are part of the editing, which things are part of the director. But honestly, I prefer The Last Duel. I mean, I enjoy Everything Ever All at Once, but not as much as everyone else does. So I prefer Duel. I disagreed with a lot of what Barr said, honestly. But I thought he argued it better. I thought he did a better job of talking about how the director's job to bring all these elements together, which is one of the main things the director has to do, and it just convinced me to vote for him.
All right. So we are tied up 1-1. We're going to get into this next fight, which is sure to give me an aneurysm. Confuse everybody abroad. The question was in the category of sports, and the question is, who is the best athlete in a baseball movie? Barr, you drafted this. You're kicking it off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Let's talk about one of the greatest athletes in the history of baseball. Let's talk about Jackie Robinson. Let's talk about Jackie Robinson in the Jackie Robinson story, where Jackie Robinson plays Jackie Robinson. You literally have the athlete in the movie showing off their athleticism in the movie. So I'm also going to bring up some Jackie Robinson stats. Jackie Robinson had 137 home runs, 734 RBIs, and 197 stolen bases in that time period is absolutely insane. This is going to be a weird fight, but I have the actual athlete in my movie. So I think that helps. And I yield the rest of my time.
Great. Spence, who did you pick? 1 minute.
Let's talk about one of the greatest athletes in baseball history. Let's talk about Jackie Robinson. Chadwick Boseman plays him in 42. Jackie Robinson in this film actually plays baseball. Jackie Robinson's story. He spends most of the film actually just like growing up or in World War II. This entire film, Jackie Robinson plays baseball and is actually credited with the data that proves him to be one of the greatest players of all time. In the Jackie Robinson story, he played, I think, 2 or 3 games. And no mention of his overall statistics of him as an athlete. End of my time.
So we got Jackie Robinson going up against Jackie Robinson.
This is what you wanted, people.
I need to start being strict on the questions. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Okay, so let's talk about the movie 42. The most interesting parts about 42 are parts that don't have to do with the actual playing of baseball. In the Jackie Robinson story, you get multiple games where he's playing Montreal versus Montreal in that warm-up, where he has that beautiful under the chest throw to first base. He's got his first game in the Negro Leagues where he just like slams that home run. You are actually seeing him play baseball.
Okay, but we're not talking about movie. We're talking about athlete. I can say I have the transcript in front of me. Tell me the things that he does, the data that he has in that movie, and I can cross-reference if that is true or not.
Okay, here we go.
Give me stats.
Mentioned in the movie. In the Montreal game against Jersey, he hits a homer. He has 4 hits, 1 homer, 2 stolen bases, 2 scores on box. In the jump tag in the Montreal versus the Dodgers game, he has 4 hits, one of them being a homer. He hits a triple in his first game as a Dodger. He goes from second to first base and still gets rhythm. He at one point is mentioned for hitting 21 games in a row and 42 bunts in that season.
There's a bunch.
They mentioned that in the movie.
Okay, what about the stats you said earlier, like the 137, the 149? Where did that come from?
Jackie Robinson's actual stats. You know, the guy who plays him in the film.
But that's not in the movie that you're referencing. In 42, show me where. In 42, in the end montage of things that he actually did, he won the World Series both in 1947 and 1955. He was named Rookie of the Year in 1947, and he led a victory against the Cardinals while being personally injured by another player. That's not the Jackie Robinson story. A dude stepped on his calf and busted his leg open, and he still led them to a victory. That is not in your movie.
And guess what? The person that actually happened to is in my movie. Question is, who is the best athlete in the baseball movie? I have the actual athlete. The incredible athlete.
I have the athlete who is in a movie, because movies are about characters. If you're in, what were you in? If because you're in Creed 2, are you just a dude who just watches boxing matches? No, because it's about performance. It's about performance. Chadwick Boseman played a character named Jackie Robinson who did these things. The stats that you listed off in your opening segment, I have the transcript open, are not in the film. It is not said anywhere besides the individual, okay, he won a game. I'm giving you stats from him as a player because that is actually in my movie. I'm citing sources that are relevant to the question.
And you know who's in my movie? Jackie Robinson, who had those stats, plus all of the stats that you told me to bring up, and I did, that are in the movie. So, and not only that, Jackie Robinson, the real Jackie Robinson, is actually a pretty good actor. So he's doing a great job playing Jackie Robinson as Jackie Robinson, which we love apparently when we give DiCaprio praise for actually jumping in a cold river.
But if we're talking about like actual like things we can reference within the movie, because as we've seen from my Star Wars debates in the past, it is not about these things happen outside. It is what is in the movie. I have the transcript pulled up. The things that are actually cited about Jackie Robinson doing within the film is that he won the Freedom House medals gifted by President Eisenhower. He won the Memorial Institute of Gold Medal for Betterment of Race Relations from George Washington Carver.
That doesn't have to do with baseball.
And he was the MVP for the National League, which was also in 42. Those are the only cited things that happen in your movie. I have actual sports played in mind.
Those are not the only things cited in my movie. I just read off all of the stats that are.
You're listing individual games. Individual games. Great players can have great individual games. I'm telling you, he won Rookie of the Year. He won Rookie of the Year in my movie. Did he in yours? I do not find the source. I cannot find it in your transcript. That did not happen. Did he win the 47 World Series? Yes, that happened in both movies. Did he win the World Series of 1955? No, not in your movie, in my movie. I have stats. You have an actor who is in a movie. This is about acting,
and you actually see his athleticism, the way that he's running down those bases, the throws that he's making. Those are beautiful throws that he's actually making.
It's not best athleticism. Best athlete is about, who is the character in the... I could pick fucking Major League. That is still an athlete within a film. We're talking about character. By character, my Jackie Robinson has more accredited stats and a better performance of actual time in baseball as a game than yours. Yours, a majority of his time is spent either as a child growing up or in the military in World War II. That is over half of your film.
That is 20 minutes.
Over half of your film.
That is 20 minutes of an hour 16 film.
We're going to go to Spence. Spence, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Okay, so let's go over some stats that Barr said. I just looked up RB on the transcript. That's not really in there. Let's look at on-base percentage. That's not really in there. No stat that Barr is crediting to Jackie Robinson as an athlete is important to that film other than individual game performance. What I have in 42 are things that he actually did as a player. The things that are referenced within film, which is the precedent set by many Star Wars matches, mind you, and MCU from Boatman versus Coho, is what happens within the movie. What is cited and credited within the movie. Within my movie, again, he has won the 1947 and 1955 World Series, Rookie of the Year 1947, and literally won a game after being attacked by another player, being physically injured, and still scored the winning run. That is what happened in my movie. Barr's movie, and I can literally pull up the Wikipedia for you right now. It starts out with him as a boy where he has a glove and he plays at UCLA. But he plays. No other context there. He's in World War II. He's drafted. He's there. Nothing else. He is not an athlete in that movie for most of it.
Most of it. Strike it from the record. Let's move over to Barr. Barr, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
I'd like to thank Adelaide Spence for reminding me about UCLA, where we see him also play football, and we see him play basketball. So he plays 3 sports, and he's great in 3 sports in that movie. Whereas with 42, we only see him playing baseball. I'd also like to bring up all the stats that are mentioned in the movie that I did bring up when Adelaide Spence asked me to bring them up. So, all in all, I feel like Adelaide Spence is spinning their tires because they know that I have not only the best athlete as a performance, but also the actual best athlete in a baseball movie. So I win this argument doubly.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay, time's up. All right. Holy shit. This could have gone a lot worse.
I think we all lose this argument.
What'd you say, Brian?
I think we all lose this argument.
This could have gone worse, but Bucky judges you guys.
Is there fact checking in Fanzone?
I fact check, but it doesn't
Okay.
necessarily always.
Yeah.
Spout all the lies you want, as long as you aren't called on them.
I'm so sorry.
Brian, you get to kick this one off. You're special.
Great. Yeah, I hate this question. I hate that we get to spend the whole time just arguing semantics. So that's something. So honestly, right at the end, I wasn't sure which way I'm going on this. I did end up going for Spence, reluctantly. I like I said, a lot of it was just semantics, things like that. Barr actually almost pulled me to the side. We talked about the 3 sports thing. But the fact is, as Spence kept talking about how, within his movie, you are seeing more of his gameplay, more of his abilities, more of that. Whereas the other one's a better story about, how he became who he was growing up. But it was honestly a toss-up towards the end there, but finally for Spence.
Cody. You're muted.
Just
Thankfully, Jacoby never found out that Jackie Robinson was in an actual film because I argued 42 at one point against Jacoby. Who was the best athlete in a baseball movie? By the terms of the question, you could have picked any athlete to be in a movie and then argue their actual accomplishments. This was convoluted as shit. This was stupid. I don't believe there was I feel like at the end of Happy Billy Madison, in your excessive rambling, you were nowhere near a correct answer. May God have mercy on both your souls. I ended up going with Barr, and I'm 51-49. I'm not even comfortable writing that at this point because, the overall argument, and I think what swayed, and I think it's stupid, is the 3 sports thing was okay. We're talking about some athletes. We're talking about awards won. We talked about awards won and stuff like that in the winning round, but not a lot of what made them a great athlete, just their accomplishments, I guess, gives you that. But I wish it was explained a little bit more. And there was it was a classic, my children saying, he said this, no I didn't, you said that, no he didn't, it was back and forth, I know you are, but what am I? It was a bunch of bullshit. So Barr, good, and I'm glad that Brian voted for Spence so Tim can just I don't want to.
Let Bucky make a tie.
Yeah,
nobody. Ellie wins.
Yeah, I'll go with Mama. So this sucks. So when I saw the answers, I was like, "Fuck!" God damn it! And I couldn't change it at that point. And I can't, I can't change the answer that's on my board. I wrote it. I agree with the fellow judges that this is kind of a semantics shit show. I agree with Cody in the sense that the question says, who is the best athlete in a baseball movie? And so I think Barr's pick, technically, it counts. We went for it. Spence convinced me, though.
Oh my God.
That in the movie, that in the movie 42, Jackie Robinson is a better athlete
I brought up literally everything.
than Jackie Robinson.
I brought up
in-
name one play that they mentioned.
And that is where I'm going, and we're gonna move on. So it is 2-1 in favor of Spence. And we're gonna take Cody and Brian off screen. We're going to move on to the final question of the prep round. It is going to be in the category of Star Trek. It was drafted by Spence. And the question is, who is the most replaceable Enterprise crew member in the Kelvin timeline? Spence, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I like the word ineffectual today. Hikaru Sulu is a helmsman. Helmsmen's roles are largely undefined in general by the Star Trek franchise, especially in the original series timeline. Their main role is to just take over the helm when the captain's gone. And honestly, doesn't really do a lot. He's like a CEO. He just like listens to what other people tell him to do and then maybe makes a decision. On top of that, Sulu has had to be saved by Kirk, Chekhov, Uhura, and Scott. He's not really doing anything. He's largely just like a plot device to be rescued. He makes no decisions to protect people. He actually made decisions that have like ruined people. He couldn't get the drill working to stop Nero from collecting red matter and destroying Vulcan, a planet. He does more harm than good. And even besides the harm, he does like nothing.
Time. All right, we're going to bring in Andrew Barr. Barr, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
I don't know what bullshit Adelaide just said during their opening, but here we go. Chekhov is easily the most replaceable member of the Enterprise. They're the head of navigation. Navigation barely does like anything of importance in this franchise. Like, name 5 times that the navigation helped the crew out in like a desperate moment. Like a desperate moment. You can't. Sulu has helped multiple times in moments of desperation. Sulu can fucking fight. Chekhov can't fucking fight. Sulu is the only person who can work the helm. Chekhov can't do the helm. Chekhov barely was able to fill in for Scotty. Barely. And even then, they weren't great. In fact, they muffed up. So, there.
Time. All right, Sulu versus Chekhov. 5 minute freeform, and one of you starts talking.
The one time Sulu fought was literally at the drill where, yes, he defended Kirk, but he still ended up leaving the drill and led the red matter getting extracted by Nero and destroying Vulcan. On top of that, again, Chekhov has rescued Kirk and Sulu on Vulcan personally by overriding the ship's transport, which has never been done before in the Star Trek universe. He also beamed them out of a singularity, which is damn near impossible scientifically. He also rescued Spock from an active volcano in Nibiru, which has never been done before in Star Trek history. That is incredibly dangerous, and he still was able to pull it off. He was promoted to chief engineering officer after Scotty's resignment because that's how much they believed in Chekhov's ability. You can stop me whenever you want.
No. I will do that. I will do that because you just brought up a bunch of stuff. Like, Sulu was the only person who went with Kirk to that drill. Sulu was like the one person who was like, I'll go. No one else did. Plus, the whole transport thing, sure, it worked out one time. Didn't work out for Spock's mom, did it? A broken clock can be right twice a day.
And missed one.
A broken clock can be right twice a day. Plus, when Scotty came back, they were all like, yeah, fuck off, Chekhov. Scotty's here. Sulu had to replace the helmsman, and Sulu was so good at the helm that they kept him there. Sulu is the only person who could have gotten the USS Franklin to have that jump start in Star Trek Beyond. At one point, Kirk looks at him and goes, can you fly this thing? And Sulu is so fucking confident, he goes, Are you kidding? Chekhov is just, gets progressively worse as these films go along, and to the point where in Star Trek Beyond, he's a bumbling idiot who thinks that whiskey is from Russia.
The problem with Sulu's restarting of the Franklin is that Chekhov does the exact same thing in Star Trek Beyond with the Enterprise. As it is crashing into Starfleet, he restarts it and saves the entire crew, all of Starfleet, and the entire planet that they're on. On top of that, I don't know why Chekhov taking over for Scotty's position makes him replaceable. If anything, that makes Scotty replaceable because Chekhov, in an entirely different position, is able to master his job.
They took him back so quickly.
He literally saves Kirk from being sucked into space through Scotty's position. He is not really, because he can literally do 2 jobs at once.
Yeah, which Sulu was able to do too, because once again, he wasn't the helmsman originally. And as somebody who works every spot in their store that they work at, when it comes to unloading the truck, putting shit on the shelves, being on the cash register, cooking samples, I am easily replaceable. Just because you can do multiple things does not mean that you're not replaceable. Sulu is so good at the position that he's genuinely irreplaceable. Anybody can do navigation.
Sulu was actually demoted from captain to helmsman because on the original Enterprise trip in Star Trek 09, he literally failed to disengage the external inertial dampener, which any captain can do, mind you, which led him being separated from his fleet leaving from Starfleet.
What position?
He is a failed captain who was demoted to helmsman.
They kept him around, though. They kept him around. What positions has Chekhov had that were that high?
It's not about height of position. Chekhov has literally held 2 positions and was successful in both.
So has Sulu.
Sulu had 2 positions, demoted from one because he was so bad at his job. And helmsman is, again, a role which not a lot does. If you look at
not a lot does. Are you kidding me? Do you know how many times there's fucking danger and you have to have a master helmsman to get out of there at the fucking speed of light? Nobody on that crew can do that the way that Sulu does. Plus, Sulu has, as I said, balls of steel, and he can fight his way out. Chekhov is easily captured.
Sulu's largest accomplishments aren't him in decision making, though, and there's no actual like gripping of a wheel or disengagement for anything.
No judgment in decision making.
The decision making is led by the captain, who again is either Scott, and when he assumes the position, it's for very minute moments where he doesn't really have a lot of time to make those decisions. And in the films, even, he doesn't make decisions when he assumes the role of captain. The helmsman just sort of follows orders and doesn't. Anyone can follow. Anyone can do what he did within those films.
So does navigation. Name 5 times that the navigation is what held the ship and the crew together. You say that the captain takes control, except when he relinquished control to Sulu in Star Trek Beyond, when he jump starts the Enterprise again.
He jump starts the Franklin, which is an entirely different ship.
Yes, the Franklin.
And again, that's not, again, Chekhov does the exact same thing within Star Trek Into Darkness with the Enterprise. They do the same thing. So honestly, our points would cancel out, so you lose something with your guy.
Time. All right, Barr, we're going to close with you first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Sulu can actually fight. And guess who actually took over the ship when Kirk, Spock, and Uhura went to Kronos and Into Darkness? They gave that shit to Sulu, not Chekhov. Also, he's the one who detected that Krall was going to attack Yorktown, not Chekhov. Sulu can fight. He is the only person that they trust at the helm. And Chekhov becomes a bumbling idiot throughout. Where in the last film, he gets Kirk captured. Yeah, sure. He was able to do that one thing one time where he transported the guys into the ship. He couldn't do that again to save Spock's mom. So you know what? That was a very lucky moment. Scotty probably could have done that. As chief engineer, yep. Chekhov is easily replaceable. Fuck him. I yield my time.
Okay, sounds good. Time. All right, so we're going to move over to Spence. Spence, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Accomplishments you listed. Sulu captained the Enterprise on Nibiru. Cool. Chekhov also literally saved Spock on Nibiru. Cancel out. Sulu found out who Krall was. Cool. Chekhov was the only person who discounted John Harrison / Khan and actually thought he wasn't trustworthy. Counted out. You said name 5. I'll name you literally 6 others. Once again, Chekhov reprogrammed warp warp is fucking teleporting, which has never been done before, to save Kirk and Sulu on Vulcan. Also beaming away the other people, never been done before. She's a chief engineering officer, overtaking over Scotty's position, where he can literally do 2 positions at once. Where Sulu was, yes, he had 2. One, he was so bad he was demoted to helmsman, which is, again, nothing really happens in that position. He also stopped Kirk and Scotty from being beamed into space, and again, stopped stopped the Enterprise from hitting Starfleet. Chekhov has always risen to the occasion and saved the Enterprise crew a majority of the time. Sulu has been an object to be rescued. He's always captured or incapacitated or injured or just removed from the action. Sulu is someone who has never had to take initiative besides when he is told to. Chekhov is someone who does it, steps forward, and does everything possible to save everyone.
Time. Okay. We're gonna bring in the judges. All right, I'm going first. This was spooky. Lots of passion, which is what you want to see. I went with Barr, and I promise it's not because I'm afraid of him, but also I do genuinely think that Barr convinced me that the role of Sulu in these movies. Let me start over. The role of the navigator versus the helmsman. He convinced me why the role of the navigator is not an important role. And he also convinced me why Sulu as a helmsman is important. The reasons for Chekhov, him like as a human being replaceable, there were some examples. I don't think they were as strong as the other parts of Barr's argument, but I thought that Barr's pro-Sulu argument was very, very strong. Yeah, so that's where I went. Brian.
Yeah, the tone of this debate changed quite a bit this round. I think Barr was left thrown by that last decision, and things got a little hostile. But you know, that's as Cody knows, that's a strategy. Honestly, I thought I would say this was the closest debate of the match, except the last one was even closer, but that's only because they were both whatever. The closest real debate was this one. So it was hard because I think they both did a great job of explaining why the other person is replaceable. I was not as impressed at either argument of why theirs wasn't, because I think both of them are pretty replaceable. Ultimately, reluctantly with Barr this time, because I just a few little things that tipped it just barely in his way, where things like how Sulu was able to take command, when the other people were off and things like that. And honestly, there was nothing I heard that made me think that Chekhov was irreplaceable. He'd done good things, but there's nothing that someone else could not have done.
All right, Cody, where are you voting and why?
A lot like Jordan back here. I was doing this backstage a lot, looking at Angry Barr. I was like, this is great. I was laughing pretty hard. But
I kind of figured.
Star Trek sucks. And I haven't watched these new ones in a while. So you guys were doing a good job arguing. But I ended up going with Angry Barr. Not normal Barr because he was feisty. So he's like adding jalapenos to a pizza. It was interesting. I think there was overall you guys may have been saying the same points, but Barr seemed passionate how he was saying it. So got the edge, maybe, I don't know, but it didn't matter when I voted because those two would have decided. So.
All right, that means we're tied up 2-2, and we're moving on to the bonus round. So here's how this
everyone's favorite.
This is how it's gonna work. So I randomized the two sides of Fanzone, and then randomized the remaining categories that weren't drafted from that side. And then I came up with a question based on that category that was randomized. So you are each going to get 45 seconds to start and then 30 seconds to close. You use your time however you'd like. And whoever says their answer first will be going first. So keep that in mind as well. And I'm gonna say the question once. Once I repeat the question, then you may answer the question. If you have something in mind right away, you can use Google and the interwebs if you need to. Any questions about how this is going to work?
Nope.
Also, I like to remind, if you have an answer, say it. Don't sit here and smoke out the other person, or we'll be sitting here all day. Okay. That being said, the side of Fanzone that was randomized was the melee side, which I'm sure both players are happy about. The category was biopics.
Oh.
And the question is simply, what is the best biopic of the 21st century? So again, what is the best biopic of the 21st century?
Yep, Social Network.
Okay.
Rocket Man.
Okay, so we have The Social Network versus Rocket Man. Both movies I like. Yay. I'm going to stay on screen for this one to give you guys the countdowns and whatnot. But we're going to kick it off with Spence. They answered first. So, Spence, you have 45 seconds to open your argument when you start talking.
The Social Network is great at balancing both style and substance. It's very evocative while also being very straightforward. I think it does what many biopics should aspire to do, which is take a real story, but also add to it and make it more engaging, cut things around them, and make it the best version of a film possible rather than the best version of a story possible. Jesse Eisenberg is incredible. Andrew Garfield is incredible. The entire cast really just stand out and just draws you into a story, which does better what most biopics have a hard time doing, which is taking modern, like very recent stories and making them engaging and not timeful and just making them timeless. Honestly, the way that it balances tone and direction and writing and every bit of this is just firing on all cylinders, making one of the best movies ever, not just best biopics ever. Also, Justin Timberlake, better than he should be.
Time. All right. Barr, 45 seconds when you start talking.
Cool. Yeah, my cast also has an incredible cast. Taron Egerton's giving a performance that should have gotten him an Oscar nomination if Rami Malek hadn't won the year before. Mine is so unique compared to almost every other biopic of this century. The Social Network, when you think about it, is kind of a paint-by-numbers biopic. It's the rise and the fall. Like, we haven't seen that before in a biopic. This is done in a creative new way where it takes Elton John's songs and interpolates them into his story as dialogue. It's a literal musical using his music, pushing the story forward, and that style is incredible. Not because it only looks amazing on screen, but it fits Elton John as a person. Social Network doesn't.
All right, Spence, 30 seconds.
The Coldest Adventures direction also entirely fits Eisenberg's performance. On top of that, Oscars mean nothing. Don't cite that when you add anything. Rocket Man is also about the rise and fall. Literally starts with him at fucking rehab and then gets to where he was at the end about him falling from fame. Musicals don't elevate tone. It's not like, oh, it's suddenly like, oh, this is better. It's an entirely different type of film. It's still a biopic, but just because it's musical doesn't mean it's a better biopic because of it. The Social Network takes exactly what a biopic should be about, following who the person is and being evocative of how they're feeling in the environment around them. Every part of it is about Mark Zuckerberg, everything.
Time. Okay, Barr, 30 seconds.
You don't think Rocket Man does that? The moment that he yells at Bernie Taupin, walks away, and then comes back and he says, I'm sorry. It's a deep emotional moment. You said it is the rise and fall, but it's also the rise and fall and rise of Elton John. This is just the fall of Mark Zuckerberg. And as I said, this is just such a fresh, unique take on the music biopic, which for years we have complained as being stale and formulaic. This one takes it, reinvents it, and makes it into an amazing piece.
Time. Holy shit, you two. Way to close it out. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna put you there. Okay. No one wanted to pick Gotti, huh?
This close.
I almost picked I, Tonya. Like that was like my very next pick, which I. Oh, you could pick Bohemian Rhapsody. It's the highest grossing biopic for a minute.
I mean, if Coho was here, that would work.
Can you pick Hamilton then? Okay.
I would not have allowed it because it's not a fucking movie. Okay.
Will Taylor Swift's concert be a movie then?
No.
It's going to theaters.
I had to pay money for that thing twice.
All right. I think we're starting with Cody.
Yeah.
Sure. Again, Tim always like makes like the easiest, like not hard debate questions for the bonus rounds where it's like, these Titans talk for 12 seconds. I think it was tough. I think one person got into repetitive mode. The other person was able to continue painting the picture from their opening to their closing and painting it away, even though I think it's been like a lot of talking points, but I had to go with Spence. I think Spence overall described the movie, described why it worked, described why the biopic works, kind of took down Barr's critiques of it being paint by numbers, and then throwing the paint by numbers back at Barr, which is also true. The musical thing I think was a touch, but I just don't think Barr explained enough why it's the best. So I had to go Spence.
I swear to God, if Tim is frozen.
I think Tim's frozen.
Oh no.
Hey, I know I heard that we got a clean cut, but I'm not going to pretend. I don't know what the fuck Cody said. I heard none of it. So my internet cut out. Okay, so I feel like I'm going first because I didn't hear anything Cody said. But I know who he voted for. I know he voted for Spence. This was great. I thought this was a fantastic closing. And I do think that both were excellent picks. I went with Barr. I thought that Barr did a good job of kind of, and again, I like Social Network more, but I do think Rocket Man's a real good movie. I think that Barr, to me, I thought the painting of Rocket Man taking not only biopic but music biopic, flipping it on its head, making it a genre that was stale and flipping it, doing it as a musical where everything, the rise, the fall, and the rise again, I thought was a really strong argument. I think Spence had a strong argument for Social Network, but I think I just heard more positives from Barr for Rocket Man that worked for me. So, Brian, you are deciding this one.
Honestly, in that delay, I kind of forgot most of my talking points.
Sorry.
Yeah, you guys were supposed to decide this before it got to me because I didn't want my vote to count because it was really a toss up for me. Yeah, I mean, it's hard in the speed round. They both made good support of their own. They didn't really attack the other ones as much, but because they don't really have time to do both. But I thought they both did a great job of supporting theirs. At the risk of pissing off Barr, I voted for him.
Oh, thank God.
That means your winner is Andrew Barr. We are going to go to post-match interviews. We're going to start by talking to Spence. Fantastic job on the match. Clearly got under Barr's skin. Whether you were the one that got under Barr's skin or if it was me and Brian.
That was me being a dick. 100% that question was me being a dick. I had to be.
I think that you played really great. I think, as I said at the beginning, you continue to improve. And I think this was just another improvement on your record here. It's not a win on the record, but I think you played fantastic, and Barr really made you work for it. How are you feeling about that?
Weirdly enough, I was only confident about the Star Trek question, so I don't know what happened today. No, I knew Barr was going to show up. I was happy to play him, but I knew there was going to be a fight. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I hope I didn't hurt his feelings because I can be a dick sometimes when I argue. I get very like confident when I shouldn't be. But
I'm pretty sure he's
I
more
like
like
this.
it's not you.
I love this, and I hope I get to come back sometime soon. I just need to like round out my flaws and like target stuff better.
That's fair. When you come back next season, is there anybody that you want to play? Yell at, maybe?
I want to play someone else, and I really want to play Bill. He's gonna kick my ass, but I love watching him debate, and I'd love to be on the other side of it. I'm just getting yelled at by him, but like in a fun way, you know.
I think in a tournament setting that could absolutely happen. So
You win first, so I don't like it buried.
We'll see what happens. But Spence, great job today as we bring in our winner, Chef Barr. Barr. You can now is the time if you want to be upset. You can be upset. You can yell at us. How you feeling, man?
Someone give me a fucking cigarette.
Let's start with discussing your reaction when you knew the vote came down to me.
I saw you roll your eyes, and I
You're
got
like,
so
"Oh."
fucking scared. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I've been up since 3 a.m. this morning. I love Adelaide, Spence. I really do. We know how to get under each other's skin, but in the end, I do really love Adelaide a lot. So I'm just tired.
That's fair. Barr, I thought this was a really good performance. Even before you turned into, as Cody says, angry Barr, you played really great. I think even in the ones that you missed, you played fantastic. This is a really good position to be in going into next season. How are you feeling? Is there anybody that you want to go up against as we head into next season where you will be in a title picture towards the beginning of the year?
Give me someone easier than Adelaide, please.
That's fair. We'll see if we can do that. Barr, fantastic job tonight. I really think you did great. So let's get final thoughts, starting with Mr. Newberries.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good fight. Overall, I think Barr got really frustrated because I think Barr kind of did what I would have done, is got that answer, the question, kind of worked around it after the second answer, since Spence answered first and tried to work it around. Again, sometimes the arguably correct one, or you think is correct, and it hardly ever wins here. It just does. Like, you could put like the clear-cut answer out there, but it's almost like confidence, like, oh, I got this because it's the right answer, and the other person has to know to fight even harder because it's not the correct answer. But I think it's good. I think Barr, Barr has some weaknesses, of course, like out there in debate, like especially in fandom, like he has to strengthen up like in those questions. But I think he did really good with Star Trek. Like, I don't know if he thinks he would have won that question going into it, but maybe if he's as passionate as he was the entire time, like this could have been a cakewalk for him. But yeah, I think it was a good fight.
Brian, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, it was close for me, honestly, because I mean, it's no surprise it went into overtime. The only argument I thought that for me was a slam dunk to one side was that first one with Bond. The rest of them were really a coin toss. I just had to pick one or the other. Had to find one little thing that tipped me to one person or the other. As far as thing, like Cody already said, like I even said in several of mine, like I disagree with their answer, but just the debate, one side won it. Even if I don't think it was the right answer, I think that the way it was debated just came out that way. But yeah, fun match, enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for us tonight at Fanzone Debate. Thank you for watching. We're going to see you real soon with the final act is coming up, where the current champion, who we totally know who it is going to be going up against Kurt Kolakowski. Brian, secret, is going up against Kurt Kolakowski in the final act. So we'll see you real soon for that in a couple weeks. But until then, thank you for watching. I've been Tim. That was Brian. That was Cody. Barr and Spence. We'll see you next time. Bye.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.